All right, guys, welcome back to the installation of the alternator on my F32 B58, Gen 1 B58. So this is the new alternator that came in. As you can see, the pulley works, isn't like wiggly at all. See, it's been just wearing this groove into the alternator area right here, all that play. And I think that's ultimately what led the belt to fall off and this to slip. Honestly, I'm not sure what caused it to do this. It almost looks like it had too much downward pressure and it was scraping through the alternator and then went through enough to let the belt slip right off. This one, zero play. But anyways, let's get into installing it. So I went ahead to just test fit it because since the old one was so difficult to take out, I actually had to hammer it back and forth to get it off that little wedge there from the last video I was explaining to you. But this one came out extremely simply. Like, it should have been this easy in the first place. All right, so this is what was getting me stuck last time. The little clamp part here, which you can see right here. So this is what clamps on to right here. And that almost seemed like this was, I don't know if it was over tightened or what, but it was, I had to literally smack it off with a hammer to get the old alternator off. This new one literally slipped right in. So thankfully you don't have to take off the intake manifold, and you can maybe even get away with not having to take off all of this. But I found it was just the easiest way, and considering I had no sources or anything to look at or not really a lot of forums to go off of, this is just what I found to be the easiest. So, you know, just try to maybe experiment when you're doing it. But other than that, I'm just going to start hooking up the back wires here. I know I got this one that goes in the back, and I know I have the, I believe this is the positive cable that actually charges the battery. Don't quote me on that, I could be wrong, but yeah, so I gotta go ahead and tighten those up, and then I'll put this main bolt in here, this one over here. These two are actually gonna secure the alternator in place, and then I'll start hooking other things up. I went ahead and I placed it back in. I highly recommend connecting the wires that go to it first before you actually put those two main alternator bolts in. So I have this blue one here, you see, with the purple wire, and then I also have the red one. I'm probably gonna do the purple wire, small, fragile one first, and then I'll do the positive cable that runs to the battery, just because I feel like since that's lower, the positive cable is going to get in my way. But just try to remember to do that before you actually bolt it in, just so you have a little bit of wiggle room in there to work with. I went ahead and I just lightly threaded the bolts. Again, the short bolt goes over here and the much longer bolt goes down here. It's really hard to get this in until you have that bolt in. It helps line up the alternator properly. I did get those two connected back here. So as you can see, I got this one here, that's the purple cable one, and then this positive cable as well. I got that. And this is to the throttle body. So we're not there quite yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and thread this in. I did have to spend some time to get all of the serpentine belt out of the actual crankshaft pulley, as you can see by all the shredded belt here on the ground. So now we're just working on actually tightening this up. This is an E12, just a reminder. To be honest, I don't really know the torque spec, but I'm just gonna do the good old tight enough, and then maybe like a little extra oomph to make sure it's not gonna go anywhere. So, yep. All right, I went ahead and I put those bolts in, just gave them the old German tight, and that doesn't look like it's going anywhere. I was trying to inspect, like maybe one of the pulleys is off, but as you can see, they all kind of line up. Maybe that's what made the old one went out, but everything looks in line, so I have no clue. Maybe it's just a manufacturing defect in that specific alternator. Next, I'm gonna put on this throttle body, and then I'm probably gonna put on the new idler pulley. I know I said this in the last video, but labeling the bags with all the bolts has been super helpful. I went ahead and got a new belt because, you know, obviously the old one got shredded. And then I got a new idler pulley because, well, I was suspicious this was the original cause of the problem. I'm thinking maybe it was just applying some kind of weird tension to the alternator, making it prematurely fail. But yeah, I went ahead and replaced it anyways. It wasn't too expensive. I ordered all this through FCP Euro, so I get lifetime replacement on everything. Okay, with the throttle body, it's a 10 millimeter. If you can see it on there, 1, 2, and 3 right here. This is what it looks like. Top angle, side angle. I kind of put it on backwards for a second, but it wouldn't fit, so it only fits on one way. So just tighten those bolts up. German tight once again. And then we'll move on to installing a new idler pulley and then probably the belt tensioner. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. Totally forgot to mention this, but for the throttle body clip that goes right back here, kind of hard to see, but the one that I just told you to clip in, make sure that that tab is clipped. So I would definitely recommend clipping it before putting the screws on for the throttle body, just because it's kind of hard to maneuver around there. Same thing for that same purple wire clip back here. We already mentioned like 4 times. You want to make sure all those clips that we use the screwdriver to take them all out, you want to make sure those are clipped back in when you're installing them, so they're all secure on all of the cables they need to be on. All right, so the new idler pulley, I didn't even actually tighten these bolts, but this is where it goes. There's just some weird paint in there, don't worry about that. But this is the idler pulley, just goes on here. It is 3 13mm bolts. So 1, 2, and then 3 down here. The pulley does look like it's in a weird position right now because there is tension on it, so we can put the belt on. This is the tensioner pin. The new pulley that I bought came already tensioned. So you're gonna want to fit a socket over this once you tighten all 3 of these bolts down, so you can take this pin out. And if you've never done an idler pulley before, you kind of have to put extra tension on it with a wrench to kind of move it back a little bit, and then you're going to take the pin out and they're going to release the tension, and that's what keeps the serpentine belt actually tight here, which is why I'm thinking it resulted in this being this failing, because the tension on here must have been weird in some way. I'm hoping it was just that and not something more serious, like the crank pulley being out of a line or something. I don't know, but everything else looks good. So I'm just going to run it. In worst case scenario, all of these are warranted by FCP Euro, lifetime replacement, no questions asked. So I'm not too worried about it, other than just having to put more labor into the car. But you know, that's what I'm here for, I guess, right? So let's go ahead and tighten these up, and then I'll show you how to orientate the serpentine belt. All right, so I put the belt on. I'll put a diagram up on the screen that I used for this. Essentially, it goes around the crank pulley down here, comes up from under there, around this right here. I believe this is power steering, I want to say. I'm pretty sure that's the power steering pump. And then over the alternator, and then under this idler pulley here. So you can probably tell better from the diagram than this, but what we're going to do now is we're going to take, I believe, a 15 mil, and we're going to go ahead and put it over this bolt here and apply tension on the idler pulley so we can remove this pin, and then it's going to keep everything nice and snug. Just remember, whenever you're doing this, to make sure that the accessory belt is on the grooves of everything very nicely, and it is evenly on the back side of whatever other pulleys there are, just so your belt doesn't get immediately shredded when you start it. So again, you want the grooves to be in anything that is grooved, if that makes sense. You want them to match. So anything smooth, you want the back of the belt on. Anything grooved, you want the groove section of the belt on. Okay, so I went ahead and I put my socket on here. This is the only bar I had to extend it. It's way too long, but it'll get the job done. You want to apply some pressure on it and then remove this pin. I would keep that just in case you need it in the future. And then you're going to slowly release the pressure on this socket, and you'll see the belt start to tension itself. I unfortunately don't have enough hands to record it, so you'll just have to take my word for it, and I'll show you when done. So I went ahead and I released the pressure from the socket wrench that I was using and the extended bar to have more leverage on this, since it is pretty tight to, well, it's not tight, but it's just really difficult to do it just with such a small socket wrench. Usually you should use a breaker bar, but I don't have access to mine right now. So everything is tight now, as you can see. It's all tight down here. So the belt is good. Everything is holding up pretty well. Nothing looks like it's out of place or loose. Whenever you're tightening up, just make sure that nothing is loose and all of your clips are plugged in, because the last thing you'd want to do is put everything back together and then install all the clips. I'm about to start reinstalling all of the airbox components and the charge pipe and everything. So I'm going to show you all the clips just so you don't forget as well. And hopefully I don't forget. I'm going to be referencing the first video I made just to make sure before I turn everything on. I did forget to mention, before you do any of this, especially since it's probably like one of the most electronical components in your car, other than like the ECU or something. Disconnect your battery. I already did that, but you want to disconnect your battery. It was the first thing I did. I forgot to bring it up in the first video, but you want to disconnect it, the positive side first and then the negative side of the battery, and leave your trunk open, because if you close your trunk with the battery off or the battery disconnected, you won't be able to open it because it's an electronic release. I actually lowered my back seats because the only way to open the trunk that I know of, at least, when the trunk is closed and the battery's off is, well, one, breaking into the car, but pulling this switch right here. This is like the manual override, I guess you could call it. But yeah, so I just went ahead and I pulled these little tabs here to lower my back seat just in case. I did actually close it by accident, so I'm really glad I did that. I have a bunch of junk back there, just ignore that. But yeah, so definitely you want to lower the back seats just in case, but definitely disconnect your battery when you're doing this. All right, so I went ahead and tightened these. These are T30 bits right here. So 1, 2, 3 underneath right there. So 1, 2, 3. And then we have 3 clips right here. So that one's gonna go right there. And then I kind of put these 2 out of the way just so I wouldn't accidentally crush them. That's gonna go in there. That one's gonna go in there. Just don't forget to push down on these tabs and then you'll be all good. All right, I always like to just give them a little extra tug just to make sure they're all secure and there's no creaking or clacking or anything. So I'm gonna say that you're good. Don't forget to take these rags out as you're reinstalling stuff. The last thing you'd want is to suck up a rag into your intake. I've already taken the one out of my throttle body and that part of my charge pipe in, so I don't have to worry about those 2. Next, I have one in one of my airbox things over there, and then actually connecting them all to the turbo and everything. All right, so I got the first piece on, coming from the cold side of the turbo. You want to make sure that this C-clamp is on good. You want to make sure that you see both sides of the clamp going through. I did kind of like a test fit with it out of the car just so I can make sure it's going through properly. And then you want to reconnect 3 hoses. So this PCV hose here, you want to reconnect it on, give it a little tug, all secure. This one right here as well. And then there is one of those little, I don't even know what to call this kind of connector, but you want to make sure this is reconnected as well. That kind of leads by the PCV hose, and you want to make sure this like clamp is on the right side, or else the PCV hose won't fit over there. So just make sure all of that is aligned before you fully clamp everything in, and then we're ready to put the next piece on. Alrighty, so we've got the next piece leading up to the airbox. Just remember that's a 7mm hose clamp or a flathead. I don't know how you'd get a flathead down there, but I just used a 7mm and a small ratchet. Next we need to put the actual airbox on, and then I want to say we're getting ready to start the car. So let's hope this goes well. Oh, don't forget about the mass airflow sensor. You want to keep that clear because it's going to go right here leading to the airbox. So, all right, so the airbox is now in. Mass airflow sensor is plugged in. This hose clamp is clamping 6mm, oddly enough, when the other one was a 7. I don't know if that's just my car or what, but you're kind of doing a few things here at once. So you got to line up the 3 grommets. So there's 1, 2, and then there's one kind of like in the center, 3. These grommets for me stuck to the airbox when I yanked it out, so I had to take them off, reinsert them, and then do it like that, or else I'd have to slide in the airbox, which didn't really make sense. So I just took them off, put them back on. That's probably the way they're supposed to come off anyways. You're lining those 3 up, the intake up, and there's like a secondary intake that comes in through the front here. So you want to make sure that you're lining it up into the airbox. It's right there if you can kind of see it, but it was honestly pretty easy. It took me like maybe a minute, if even, to get this all in. But yeah, so just make sure everything's clamped on nice and tight, and then I'm gonna just go over everything, make sure I didn't forget any clamps or hoses or something, and then I'm gonna reconnect the battery and try starting it. So we'll see how it goes. I'm happy to report that everything is back to working normally. As soon as I turned on the car, the battery malfunction light, or the battery charging malfunction light relating to the alternator, was on, but I just turned off the car and then turned it back on, and then it went away. And I drove around the block for about 10 minutes, just up and down the streets, and nothing came back. So I'm hoping it stays that way. But for now, it seems like everything's fixed. So with that being said, if you guys have any questions about anything, be sure to leave it in the comments. I'll try to answer it whenever I can. I'm on YouTube pretty often, but I honestly don't post that much. I'm mostly just watching videos. Like I said earlier, I just noticed there was never any videos about how to replace the alternator. So I figured I would just make one since, you know, I've watched so many, kind of give back to the community kind of way, I guess. But yeah, so if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments and I'll try to answer them. All right, thanks for watching.